Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to discuss method calls in Taskflow. So in order to demonstrate this, I have this demo application which I'll show you in some time. Plus, I have this Taskflow created, which is the demo which I'm going to show you. So in order to get started, I just want to discuss few more points which will help you to understand this flow. So let's come to the first one. That's the SQL query. Now, there are sometimes you'll see the requirement where you need to do a parcel search, like, right? So, in order to do a parcel search, maybe a user enters a percentage, or if he doesn't enter, if he enters only the partial value, he should be able to get the result. Here, you can achieve this using this like operator and the bind variable. You can provide it here. Okay. So I have the query here. So here I'm not going to provide any values. So if the user doesn't provide any values, means the values are not mandatory for the user will be able to see all the output. Now, for example, I'm going to provide some value like only 1 here. The delivery ID is 1. So, but you will be able to see a parcel output. So you'll be able to see the one ID which has 1, plus you'll be able to see the ID which has 117. Let's go to the next topic. Next is how to create a bean in ADF. So in order to create a bean, uh, either way, either you can create a class. So I've created a test param bean class, and you can register it in your ADFC config, which is your uh, ADFC config file. I mentioned the name of the bean, the package here, and the scope. I've used page flow scope. And if you are you can do either way. You can either register it first, and then if you create a class with the same name, the bean will get created. Next is how to create an iterator binding in JSF page. So in order to do this, you first need to have a JSF page created. Here I have the test param JSF page created. So if the page has any data control object present in it, means any data control object which you have dropped from your data control to your page, the page definition will get created automatically. You will be able to access. In case the page is empty, you don't have any data control objects right present here, or it's a new page, then page definition you need to create. So in order to access this page definition, you just right click on it and go to the page definition. A new page definition file will get created here. You can see your test params page definition file has got created. Now here in executable section, if you click on this plus icon, you will be able to see several options. Choose the create iterator binding option. Here inside your data control, all the view objects which are available will be shown to you. Select the view object for which you want to create the iterator binding. Here I have selected food delivery view object, and I can see that my food delivery view object has been created. I can use this to programmatically access this view object. Now, how to access a view object programmatically? So we can do it in several ways. We can use the iterator binding. So here in this first step, I have created this iterator. In order to access this, you can just use this iterator binding object, find iterator method to access the iterator binding. Provide the name of the iterator which you created in step here above. Then using this iterator object, you can use the get view object method to access the view. Now, I've used this method view.execute empty row set. So sometimes, like if you see in this example, I showed you a query where if the user is not providing any values, all the data of that particular view object is being fetched. So sometimes it will be requirement that you don't need the data, right? You know, when the page opens first, you don't need all this data. So in those cases, you can use this execute empty row set, so the view will not return any rows. Now you can also access a view object in your bean class using the application module object, and use the data. This is the data control object, and it's the name of the data control. Then you have this is the name of the application module AMPL class. You can just see it here. This is the application module, and this is the data control. But you can see one more thing here, the find data control method is used, which is shows as depreciated. So I won't suggest you to use this, though you can access using this application module am object, right? You can access it. You if you have a view objects IMP created, you can create an object of this and access it, or else you can use the normal view object to access the view object here. Okay, so as this is depreciated, there is other way you can do this is you can access the view object in the application module. So here you just have to access the getter of that view object, and you will be able to access the view. Next is how to read input text values from bean class. Now here if you see the example, I have two input text fields, customer ID and delivery ID, where user will enter some inputs, and I want to capture these values and store it, right, access it in my bean. So for this I have created two private string variables. I have created the getter and setter of it. Now, using the EL expression, I will assign this input text field to the variables which I have defined in the bean class. So, this is my test param bean class, and these are the values to input text. Now, in order to do this, I'll just go to expression builder. I'll go to the ADF managed beans here. Now, you can see different scopes of the beans available here. The one which is showing at the top is the request scope, so you can see it here as well as you can see it here as well. Okay, mine is in page flow scope, so I'll go to here. I have only one bean here, test param bean. Here the customer ID is present, so I can just select the customer ID from here and delivery ID from here. Okay, so this is how we can assign the EL expression. So once you have assigned the EL expression, it looks something like this. Now you can access it in your bean class using this variable which you defined in your bean. Okay. Now how to execute a view object with bind variables programmatically. Here I have the view object, right? We have two bind variables, be customer ID and be delivery ID. Now to access these bind variables or execute this view object programmatically, right? After accessing the view object using this view iterator, you can use the set name to where class param. This method you have to provide the view object name here. So this is be customer ID. So this is case sensitive. Just provide the same name, whatever binary name you have defined in your view query. Then this is the input of the user, what user is providing. So once you map this input of the user to this binary variable, execute the query, and you will be able to see the expected result. Next, we are going to discuss how to convert a row of a table to a link. For example, I have my test param bean. I have this particular column customer ID. I want to display it as a link. So for that, first of all, the input text field which is defined for this table column, right? Just commented, drop a link component instead of it. Now the value component of this input text you can copy in the text field. Okay. So once you do this, you will be able to see the value of this input text as a link. Okay, you can provide the action parameter here. You can use that properly, which we will discuss just shortly. Okay, now coming to method call. Now different ways we have to use a method call. Now method call from a bean. So in order to uh, call a method from your bean, right, which is your view layer, what you can do is first drop a method call activity to the Taskflow and give it a name. Here I have dropped it. I have given it the refresh view name. Now write a method in your bean class. This should be a simple method with something like void or string data type, simple data type. Like the methods which are created for action or action listener, don't use them here. So once you have created the method here, double click on this particular method call. You'll be able to select your managed bean and the method which you have created. For example, I have selected execute empty view here. Now after doing this, you will see a red icon here. Okay, this, so in order for this red icon to disappear, you need to provide the outcome values here. So here there are two values, the fixed outcome and two string. Here I'm using the fixed outcome, that is when you click on this, you will be able to navigate to the text params page. Okay, We'll discuss about a two-string outcome as well. Now coming to if you want a method call from an application module, okay. So in this case, you have to create the method in your application module IMPL and expose it in the client interface. So here I have this execute empty view. I'll show you. Okay, this is my method which I have created, and once you have created this, go to your client interface. Now you click on edit icon and you will be able to shuffle whatever is available right in here. Once you have done this, you'll be able to see this value in your data control. The similar steps I have just done. Now what you can do is drop this method from a data control to the Taskflow. Okay. Now if I go to my Taskflow here, I'll just close this. Okay, if you this is you can just drag and drop it here. Now if you click on this, you will be able to go to the page definition file of this Taskflow where this method appears, and you can, if you click on edit, you will be able to see from where this method this action binding got created, right? This is from your data control. Let's go back to our Taskflow here. So this is how you can create a method in application module, and then you can call this method as a method call in your Taskflow. Then these are the custom methods which we have created. You can also use method call for operations which are available out of box, like the execute with params, right? So if you see Taskflow here, I have this execute with params, which is one of the default methods, right, which is provided by ADF. So in order to do this, you see we have this test params page. And once I'm in test params page, I need to go to this delivery page. So let me show you an example. I'll see something like, let's go to one here. Where there are two custom IDs with one. So this is the search part. Okay, so you just notice that this particular method is used to just execute empty row set, because the query which we are using here, the food delivery query, right, it will return all the rows if bind variable values are not provided. But when the page loads, we don't want user to see any values, right? So if you see it again, right, I don't want any values for the user to appear. That's why I have this particular method call here, so which will execute empty row set. Once this is executed, the page will appear with these variables. Now once I enter this variable, if you see in test params page, I have this input text, right, which user will provide the values, and then once user clicks on this search button, user will be able to see the values in the table. So I've just entered a value here and user is able to see the values here. Okay, now the next thing is, if you see here, if user clicks on any of this one, user should be able to navigate to that particular uh, row only. So here you see this row that has delivery ID 1, this has delivery ID as 3. Now if I click on this, I should be able to go to that particular row itself. So in order to achieve this, you can see here in the Taskflow, we have used here view with params, right? So in your test params page, when user clicks on this link, the action to view this one is called. Once this is called, to property listeners are used here on this link. So it will carry the value of this input, whatever is the customer ID value here, right? This is the customer ID value. I'm going to store it in a customer, so in a page flow scope value. So in order to define a page flow scope value variable, you can just mention page flow scope dot that variable name. Similarly for the delivery ID, so I have the delivery ID here. So copy the value here. I want this value to be copied to this variable. This is the delivery ID value, page flow scope variable. So these values will be stored here once click or you click on this link. Now if I am going to the task flow, now when user clicks on this one, the link, right, it will navigate to the view, the to view action will be called, and then user will be able to see these details here, right? So in the food delivery page for that particular row which he has selected. Before this execute with params is called. So if you see here, this is the execute params of our food delivery view object, right? If you click on this here, you can drop this, you can go to your food delivery view, go to your operations, drop this executed params, right, directly onto your task flow here. Once you have done this, just go and edit this and enter the values of the input parameters. So here these two page flow variables which I had defined when by clicking on the link, right, I'm trying to provide the values here. So automatically when the link is pressed, the values from the row, from the initial table row, will come to these two variables and will be stored here. And when the user clicks on execute, right, this will get executed, the query will get executed automatically, and then when user lands on this food delivery page, he'll be able to see only that particular ID which he has selected. So this is what I have explained here using execute with params operation from data control, right? So on clicking on this text params, this executed params operation is called, which is drag and drop from the data control. Now I explained you about the set property listener component, right? Using this set property listener, the data will be sent from first page test params to this executed params method action, right? And then you can go and edit this action binding, provide the values here. Once you have provided the values here, when this execute params operation will run, right, the viewer will get the object, and once you move to the food delivery page, it will have the required data whatever you wanted. Okay, so this is example which I have been explaining. Next thing what I want to explain is the next part of it. So once user is in this page, right, I'm going to have one more method call here. This is a navigate decision. So if you come here, this is on the bean. So if it is on the bean, double click on it, you will be able to see the bean class. If it is based on anything from the data control, right, once you click on it, you will be able to navigate to the particular uh, page definition of the task flow, and you will be able to see that method there. Okay, and you can, if you want, you can edit it here. Now here in this method action I'm using to decide which page to navigate. So I'm just using the selection one. So here in this page I have this LOV. So based on what user selects, right, if user selects company page, I'll navigate the user to the company page. If user selects the food page, user will navigate to the food page. So in order to do this, I have just called this navigation handler to navigate programmatically to that particular control flow case, and this is here in the, I'm just trying to get the value of this select component, that LOV component, and then compare it. Okay, now let's go to the task flow. So here you can see I have used as a to string here. I didn't use a fixed outcome because this method call is, I won't have a fixed outcome. Depending on what user chooses, I'll have to navigate accordingly, right? So I've used this to string as true here instead of a fixed outcome. Now let me show you. If I click on the company page, I'll click on this next button. I am coming to the company page here. Similarly, Let's try the other way here now. So here I have a couple of customer IDs here. I'm going to this customer ID. Now in this I'm just going to select a food page. So this is just a test page without any data, because I'm just showing the navigation here. Okay, so if you click here, you'll be able to see the data here. So I did not have the binary values are not provided, right? I don't see any data, but you can just see that this is navigating according to what method action I have defined here. Okay. Now this is the programmatically calling a control flow case. This I mentioned to you. Then when to use a two-string outcome. Then some issues which you would find is the method not found error. Like whenever you define, you drag and drop, or a method call from here, right? So what will happen? You will have to link it to the bean class in case you are going to have a method called based on a bean. So I told in the first step as well, like if this is the one for bean, right? If you do not provide the outcome here, the fixed or two string, right, it will show you a red icon here. So though your page will run, but it will show this red icon with some errors. So either you define this outcome as a fixed or two string, then this error will be gone. Next is sometimes you might get this method not found error. So in this case, the bean name, right, that should be defined in IDFC config or the Taskflow, whatever you are using, right? So here my test param bean, right, I have registered it in my Taskflow as well as in the IDFC config. Okay. So once if you don't do this, then you will get the error method not found while calling a method call. And also, yeah, then if you double click on a task flow, you'll be able to select. Now when you have dropped a method call, right, if you double click on this, all the methods which is there, right, it will show you. If you drag a new one, right, in that particular bean, whatever method is available, it will show you, and you can select any of these. For example, let me try to drop one. Now if you just click on this, I can select the bean, and I can select the method out of whichever method I want to use here. Okay, so if I'm using maybe, okay, let's use a descent function here again. You see this red icon, right? So this red icon will be gone if I provide some value to its outcome. Okay, this is not true, but I have to define the control flow case and define the outcome of this. Then this red error will be gone. Also, one thing is, don't use the methods like if you click on this, you'll be able to see the methods which are even you see search view is one method which is depending on action event, right? It even a search view will appear to be selected here, but if you select this, sometimes you will get error. So make sure that the method which you are using, right, it has a simple parameter and simple return parameter as well. Other thing is, yeah, you might get some errors if you see here, right? This method which I have defined here, the refresh view method called, right, in my bean class is showing target unreachable null property not found, something like that. So for this, you will have to register the bean in the task flow, the corresponding task flow here, plus you have to register in IDF config as well. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching.